welcome to Pouring On. This is a podcast, an experience, really, that you get to have hanging out with me and my friend Chris and Ben as we explore issues that are relevant to men 50-ish, 60-ish. Which way would we go, would we say? Because I'm a little bit older than you guys.
Wait, you're asking whether Ben and I
could we call it 50-ish?
You want to know whether Ben and I are rounding up?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
50-ish, Ben.
50-ish, 60, and so yeah, older men. And
I don't know why we would limit ourselves like that. First of all,
Yeah.
when I get close to my 50s or 60s, I'll let you know, Sean. But I think I would widen the aperture of the men and women and all that we're talking to. But yes,
we are men of a certain age that are having conversations about life.
We are.
So let's just check in. Chris, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well. I've got some business and travel logistics that are hanging over my head, and you just made me think. Did the potential title "Man of a Certain Age" ever make the list when we were considering what to name this podcast? That probably wouldn't have gone over too well, would it have? Men of a Certain Age.
I think it might have. We were mostly focused on titles that had an alcohol pun,
Yeah.
and before Sean went legit, and changed that up on us.
Right.
So we're sticking with it, Chris.
Yeah, Sean has gone mostly dry, but what you don't know, Ben, is that Sean is at least when I got on, was chowing down some big old chocolate chip salted cookie that he was really enjoying. So he is not without his vices. Let's just say that. But anyway, I'm doing well. I figured I would sneak in a quick beer since the stress. It's not really stressful, but just to soothe my nerves and enjoy my time with you guys. Ben, how are you today?
I'm good. I've got a white mug which covers all manner of sin. It's got a little whiskey in it for a cold Newark evening. I'm good. I'm excited to chat with you both. Got a lot on my mind in different directions with the holidays coming up, end of year, work surge, all kinds of things going on. But glad to be into it with you guys.
You got a smile on your face, so that's good. That's a good start.
Yeah. It's poured on time. Gives me joy.
So here's where I want to start. Chris brought up the idea that I still have some vices, and I'm going to start there a little bit with a story. So when I first started dating my wife, she and I went to the Bahamas, and I had never gambled before. I was 28 or so, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to teach you how to play blackjack." One of the biggest mistakes of her life. Maybe marrying me was the second or first, depending on how you look at it. Teaching me how to play blackjack, and for 30 years on a regular basis, with her and without her, I have gone to Vegas and played blackjack. Many times I will say, I don't know, maybe the fourth or fifth time I was there, somebody said, "Hey, want to go to the pool?" I'm like, "Wait, they got pools here?" So, and Vegas is, if you didn't know, Vegas is always 72 degrees because we never left the casino. So I have some vices. But I say that because I have been thinking a lot about and wondering a lot about I'll say the infiltration of gambling in our culture, in our society. And particularly, as I watch sports, because I enjoy sports, and everything is about the odds and prop bets and who's going to do what. I mean, it's just, it's right there in our face all the time. And I know if you look at the numbers, and I don't have the exact stats, but some of the stats I do have, 70% of the bettors, sports bettors, are guys. 50% of men 18 to 49 have at least one account on one of the online betting platforms. And I'm just going to say, I think it's kind of a problem, and exacerbated by the fact that it's so easy to do on those devices that we keep in our pockets. Mm-hmm. But this isn't about gambling. This is about risk. And one of the thoughts that I had as I'm considering this is how many, people are betting on other people to do things, to perform as a way of potentially making money. And I'm like, just wondering how often do the people that are making those bets are betting on themselves? And you could talk about betting capital. You could talk, maybe more importantly, about betting time and how we spend our time,
Mhm.
and how do we put it against certain things, and that'll have some impact. Obviously, be impacted by people's risk profiles. To add to the discussion, men are known to be more risky than women. And I don't know if that's nature or nurture, or maybe a combination of both. So let's have a conversation about risk, about making bets. And either one of you can go with kind of a first reaction to this topic.
Hmm.
I'll start. A really interesting topic to me. So yesterday, my son Sam and I had a great late morning, early afternoon in Central Park. Checked out the colors, took some pictures through the football. Got sandwiches and sat on a rock and just looked at life. It was great. Try to do that at least once a year. Coming back into the city because we had come back into Brooklyn, we had some things to do here, and we take the subway back. And the subways in New York on the weekend are always just a crapshoot, pun intended. You just never know, and you can't understand what they're saying. Stay closing doors. And I was like, okay, so we get to the stop kind of near us, and I thought the train was going to keep going local, which means it would hit our stop next, but it wasn't clear. And so Sam's like, "Do we get off here?" I'm like, "I'm not sure. Let's stand near the doors." And they, open. And then at the last second, they say the next stop. And so the doors are open, and the conductor says what she says. I could not understand her. And I said, "What do you think? What do you think, buddy?" And he goes, "I, I think she said it's our stop." Two words, not sure what they were. I think it was our stop. I'm like, "How sure?" He goes, 70%. I'm like, "Okay, let's take those odds." Doors close. Train starts, zips past our spot, and it's the express train to like deep Brooklyn. And he's like, "Well, how are we going?" I'm like, "We're going to 36th Street." And he just kind of looked at me like, "Oh my God, that's a long way away." So we have to get there, come all the way back. And I'm looking at him like, that's the risk.
Yeah.
Like if we had to be somewhere really fast, which is usually the case, but not in the case, then I would have got off and said, like, I can't take that risk. Because I know how far we're going to go if we're wrong. But I'd rather take the risk. I'd rather lean into the risk. And he was just really disappointed that he made a mistake. I'm like, you didn't make a mistake. You didn't know. And I thought you got to be comfortable with the consequence of losing if you're going to take a risk. Have to. And that's a conversation we're going to be having for years and years because the consequences are only going to get higher. But I kind of had a little fun with it because he started to see, like, what are your motivations? What's the chances? How do you feel? A lot of people, when I would go to Vegas for years and years and years, they'd say, I just can't stomach the losing.
Right.
I'm like, well, then it's not for you. I hate losing too, but I go there with a certain amount. I'm like, I don't know what the cards are going to be. So
Right.
I go through the risk proposition all the time. It was really fun to see him process it.
So we want to make
That's
sure
awesome.
that Sam doesn't get a DraftKings account.
Yeah, I know. I'm
I,
waiting
I,
for them. Instagram has teen accounts.
yeah.
I'm waiting for those guys to come up with teen accounts. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, but there's you know, in the plus column of a young person going through that situation, or even betting or whatever, there's a lesson there that there are no sure things in life, right? Didn't make a mistake, made an educated guess based on
Right.
the information that he had. It
Hmm.
was wrong. I don't want to get into this too much about me, but I've always been super risk averse. I've played a little bit of blackjack. I have one funny story I'll share with you guys later, but um,
Whoa, you don't want to share it
I'm one of,
with our listeners?
no, no, I'll share it with the listeners
Oh.
later.
Oh.
But I'm among the whatever you said, the 45% of males in my age group that has never had an online
No, no,
gambling
no, no.
account
No,
of any
that
sort.
was that was 50% do have at least one account. 18 to 4. Oh, the
Yeah,
other
that's what
side.
I mean.
Sorry.
I'm
Yeah.
in the
You're the other side.
other
Yeah.
slice of the pie.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask me if I bet on the Nittany Lions to take down the Indiana Hoosiers this week. Had I been a betting man, I might have. I thought that they were going to win that game, and they almost did. Sorry, Ben.
I just
They
have to
covered.
They
admit
covered.
I have to admit I was texting Ben. I was going to put it in port on saying Lions, and I after they scored, and yeah, it didn't go.
No, wait. Okay, so Chris, I'm sorry. Since you took a shot at me, I got to respond to this. Here's a scene. That game is on. I'm not paying attention because it's just been a terrible season. But I see, it's close. I'm like, oh, I take Sand to get a much needed haircut. Okay, guy hasn't got his haircut in months. So I come back up. I'm like, oh, and then they have the lead, and they were behind by 3. They take the lead. Doorbell rings. He didn't have his keys. It's Sam, and I go, okay, if I bring him into this, I know the risk I'm taking. I genuinely thought this because the statistic is that the last 14 times Penn State's played a top team, they've lost.
Yeah.
14 in a row.
Yeah.
And the other thing that those games have in common, all of them I brought my son to watch. Right?
Oh,
All of them, either in person or whatever. We don't miss those games. And so I said, listen, they've got the number 2 team on the ropes. They got the ball, they got the lead, and I'm like, he's like, okay, let's. And I'm like, did I just?
Jesus.
yeah.
This guy just
You lost the game.
and so they come down, we watch it. The most incredible catch in recent football history.
Yeah.
And he's like, I said, did we? He's like, yeah, Daddy, they did it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember thinking like, what's the risk? I'm like, they probably have a 90% chance to win this game at this point, because of where that. But I'm like, the 10%, is it worth it? I'm like, you know what? On that case, no. I wish I just would have told him later.
I mean, what do you do? Send him to his room? Leave him outside? Don't
No,
let him
he
in?
doesn't even know they're playing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I could just say like, I'm watching the end of a game, but I'm like, drop everything and come in. He's like, okay.
Oh, that is funny. I didn't even know that part. It was a great game. Let's move
Yeah.
on from there. The last thing I'll say about this is I did spend a chunk of my career doing leading equity research, and the stock market is an extension of all this, right? Even the people that are investing their money in public equities or other financial instruments and are doing it smartly, they're still taking some sort of calculated risk. And then there's probably way more people who are fucking winging it, and that's flat out gambling. I think there's that sort of proliferation of betting vehicles. I would include that, and it's concerning.
Well, and I think it's actually been exacerbated by, again, our phones and apps like Robinhood. So Robinhood, is an app where a lot of young people are getting on and trying to, are making investments. But they've also integrated the prediction companies like Kalshi and I want to say Property Market. Anyways, two prediction app companies that have run rates of like $7 billion a month, where people are just making bets on cultural issues. Will Ben say this, or will Zoran get elected mayor, and so you can bet on anything. I mean, and it's not just sports; it's everything having to do in our culture. And so I'm not sure that's a good direction for us to be going.
There's really not an argument for it in the gambling sense. It's entertainment and free choice and all that. And
Yep.
I used to when I moved to New York, it was legal, and then it was legal in Jersey, so I would actually make a trip across the river if I wanted to place some bets, and now it's forever. So I benefited from it, but I think that you know, it's obviously a dangerous problem to give that much ease to people that don't have the money to take that risk.
Mm-hmm.
But I think broadening it out, where you were leading us at the beginning, Sean, is risk taking behavior.
Yep.
More broadly.
Yep.
Because a lot of times it can be tremendously positive. I mean, Chris, you talked about being risk averse, but there have been times, I think about it more in my career context where I've taken risks that have paid off, and not always, but more often than not, I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't take risks. And a lot of the
Hmm.
moves I made were unpredictable. I think I told you guys a story about how I got my journalism start. I switched majors as a senior because I came back from a study abroad trip and I was just very underwhelmed with the courses I took. And I ended up not being able to get into any classes because I switched so late and I showed up for my college senior year without any credits. And I just remember feeling like everybody else seems to think this is a crazier move than I do. Like I just felt like it was going to work out somehow.
Hmm.
And so some of that stuff I think is good. It's entrepreneurial to be risk taking, but I also remember, Sean, in an earlier conversation on one of our topics, I framed a question for you as a man, and you said, I don't really think about it in the male context. It's a human context. I'm wondering, do you think that there's a particular consideration or danger here in risky behavior for men, whatever that statistic was? Because that I've never really thought about it that way.
You mean as it relates to gambling?
Yeah, or just risky behavior in general. How you set up this topic is that, is it what's the risk of taking risks? How much is it worth it? And is this something that men need to be thinking about more than women?
Yeah, I mean, I again, without specifics, I mean, I think generally the data shows that guys are men are more likely to enter into risky activities. You know, we drink more, we ride motorcycles, we take drugs, we jump out of planes. I mean, so men just as and I don't know if it's ego. I mean, we could talk about that. Is it ego? Is it testosterone? I mean, is it what's in us biologically? Is
Yeah.
it culturally that, in order to be identified as a man, you need to take some risks? I mean, you need to show that is it a question of facing fear? Yeah, but that's yes. So we're prone to do that, and part of the part of the data that in this equation is because men die of those things more frequently than women do. So
Mm.
they die in motorcycle crashes. They die because of booze and drugs. So yeah, that's part of the reason why we have negative effects from taking those chances as well.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, when you think about your life path so far and being what you call risk averse, has that served you well as you think about these things, or is this part of you wish that you were more risky?
A hard question to answer. I mean, look, where I am right now in life, and when I look back on my 5.5 decades, I'm really pleased with the way things have gone. I feel like I've been very lucky and, not in a risk-taking way, but I've had good fortune. I was raised by two working class parents. We weren't rolling in it, but I mean, so much happiness in my life. And so I don't think I've ever thought, boy, I really should have, you know, taken that at bat, or I really wish I would have taken that chance. I mean, I've taken a couple really calculated professional, I guess you would call them risks, because anytime you take a job, it's a risk, right? There's, like I said, there's no sure bets. No one is guaranteeing you that this is going to work out. So again, everything is a bet, and I'm comfortable with my risk aversity. Which one is it, Ben? Your
Aversion.
aversion. Um, but I also, there are other pros, I think, to risk taking. And you talk about, I mean, you look at the extremes. Some dude just skied down Mount Everest, right? I mean, was that necessary? You look at Alex Honnold, who
Right.
free soloed El Capitan, right? Like, probably not necessary, but people do that. I don't. They're not doing it for the money because they're not making a coin doing that shit. But they're invigorated, energized. That's where they get their juice, I
Yeah.
guess. So I don't begrudge anybody. I do think, the all the vehicles, the easy play smartphone vehicles that we've given people who, again, someone said this before, like whether or not someone has the money to lose or to spare when they're making these bets is an interesting question. And I'm guessing many, if not most of them, do not. They're like, this is how I'm going to get rich. And that's probably the more troubling part. I mean, let me tell you the funny story real quick. So I don't like Vegas very much. I've been a couple times. I do enjoy playing some cards. But this one particular time, my college buddies and I are there, and we're doing really well at, of all places, the craps table. Like talk about where the odds are the worst, right? We all make out. Like one of my buddies goes on a run, and we're all up a couple $1,000 or whatever, and eventually some old timer who's a local, drags us away from the table. He's like, okay, you guys are up enough. Time for you to take a break, just so you don't lose everything you just won. We did that. We went and had some food. We got bored. We went down to the old part of town and sat down at a blackjack table and proceeded to get our fucking asses handed to us, right? Old crusty dealer was there talking to us, and we're oh my God, every time he flips a card, oh,
Yeah.
how bad of luck is that? And he looks at us and he goes, it's almost as if the odds are against you. Yeah, you're like, yeah, they're against you. And that's the thing about that whole, those gambling sites or whatever. It's the built-in house edge, right? I mean,
Yeah.
some people say the house always wins. The house doesn't always win, but in the end, over the long term, the house does always win. So that I think is the part of me who spends all of his time up here in his head doing the calculus is like, okay, it doesn't fill my cup as much as it may these other people. And I'm
Yeah.
not willing to lose that kind of cash.
It's funny when you say, is that necessary for somebody to do that? It sounds like my wife when she's like, really? Is that necessary for you to do that? Certainly risk is on a spectrum, right? So, Chris, when you say you're risk averse, when you make that declaration, what is something, if you could share, that you'd be like, no, that doesn't calculate. That's too risky for me.
Hmm. Well, even when I was doing stock research at Morningstar in a very fundamental way, very rigorous fundamental analysis, I wasn't investing very much. Now, it would have been inappropriate for me to invest in the stocks that I was doing research on, but it's in the game, and like that would have been the time for me to being so close to the experts, and that would have been the time for me to play that particular game.
Yeah.
Um, I think, and I've been thinking more and studying more on this as I'm getting into philanthropy advising, is I look at different types of wealth. And I think that my risk of aversion is rooted in sort of a scarcity mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my dad was unemployed a lot, lost jobs, house repossessed when I was at college when it happened. And so we truly never had much excess. And so I think that has bled into my risk tolerance. So I'm kind of like, oh, I'll grind and I'll make a living the old-fashioned way, and I'm not gonna,
Mm.
take big chances or big swings. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
That's I mean, it's always the stories are good, and then it's like the backstories that make them so real.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, that story about your dad is like, yeah, I mean, the things that motivate us, the things that make us take chances or or not. For me, Sean, you mentioned, or one of you mentioned, jumping out of planes, riding motorcycles. I think it was you, Sean. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting on a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
There's just not a path there that would make sense to me because, there's so many ways where that could go badly. I'm like, it's not worth the risk. Not worth the risk. But I've stood up and stared down presidents of the United States and asked them very tough things. And, a lot of people watching, and like that was worth the risk. I've done the gambling thing. I've stood up on stages, big stages, to give speeches, and they came out and they introduced me, and I'm like, I'm just getting them blank stares, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't really see the people, and is this mic gonna work? I'm like, wow, why do I put myself in these situations? This was optional, But then if it goes well and they're laughing and they're engaged and they come up afterwards, I'm like, wow, that was worth the risk. So I know I've had some opportunities to do the safe thing, and have chosen not to.
Mm.
And I think part of it is I know that the risk is worth it or that the edge is worth it.
Hmm.
But it's not really the thrill. I think that's the misunderstood part about risk taking for people
Yeah.
that are trying to get ahead. It's not the thrill. You know, it's like a famous line from the movie Heat,
Here we go
where
again.
you
More
got to get it
movie
in.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
That's all right.
I'm sure some. No, I'm not apologizing. I'm
Yeah.
asking. I'm asking if either of you have seen the movie Heat with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think I remember the line you're getting
Well,
ready to
they at
reference.
some point, there's this amazing cat and mouse between De Niro and Al Pacino, and at some point, they're trying to do one more score, and De Niro's like, "After this, I'm gone." So you guys, and they're on to us. So you got to decide if it's worth it, and he's taking a vote, and the one guy says, "Oh, it's up to you." He's like, "No, not on this one. You have to decide." And he kind of hemmed and hawed, and he's like, "For me, the action is the juice.
Mm.
Like
Ah,
this debate is the thrill. The thrill is the score.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
yeah.
win either way, Um, and it's not that for me. Although, again, it's hard to get away from the gambling reference here. I'm one of the 50%, Chris, who's on the other side of that ledger. I do have an account.
Hmm.
And when I do it, it's partly because the action is the juice. But there have been times where if you have a bunch of losses in a row, you start to get down. Like, you know what? Is this healthy? The way that Sean framed it up, is this actually like a good thing? What was this for? Is it supposed to be fun? Right?
Hmm.
You're
Yeah.
you're doing something with friends, or it's like now it's kind of
Hmm.
a thing where I'll show them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know what the over is going to be on
Yeah.
this. I'm like, now you're taking risks from a position of, I don't know even what you call it, frustration,
Yeah.
proving a point, anger, trying to inject something into your Saturdays that I'm like, man, go for a walk, read a
Yeah.
book, like let
Yeah.
it go, and then do the American thing and bet on the length of the national anthem.
Because you can bet on virtually anything these
Yes.
days. Yeah, I think that feeds into my never being big into betting as well. But and look, I took a risk when I took an oath and agreed to go work on submarines. Submarines maybe not the most risk-free endeavor. But in that case, the juice for me was to test myself and to achieve. So it was much longer term, more foundational or fundamental, I guess, to what I could achieve, as opposed to,
Yeah.
okay, here's the spread.
I've actually thought a lot these days when it comes to risk, as it relates to things like connection and people who are lonely, and just because of the work that we do, and the courage that often can be necessary to reach out to someone and say, "Hey, do you want to be a friend? Do you want to get
Hmm.
together?" And or they say, I don't know, Scott Galloway in his new book talks about young men and asking women out, and a high percentage of young men who have never
Oh yeah.
asked a woman on a date. And well, those are risks. I mean, those are little risks that we take every day that, either can determine a whole new direction in your life. And I think for me, it's like how as human beings do we take more of those, I'll say, little risks to enrich our life? And how do we get over the
Yeah.
no's? How do we, you talk about losing. How do we get over the no, or the wrong train, and can we get over that and do more?
Hmm.
Because I think I'm just going to say, I'm just going to lay the odds and say that if you're if you get in the batter's box more often, and take your swings, then there's a lot of goodness on the other side of that. And so
Yeah.
the connection I make between all these apps and this gambling and all that is, that's not where the good action is. The good action is out in the world, connecting with other people, and sometimes that
Hmm.
means making a bet and taking a risk.
Yeah, the apps for me, that one is even more resonant because what they've done, and I've lived this world, is that approaching someone to ask them out or ask them a question, or is incredibly hard. Not for everybody, but for a lot of guys, and
Yeah, well, yeah, I could ask President
and
Obama
so the
anything,
app
but
world
that
has
gal,
taken that out
that
of it.
gal sitting at the sitting at the bar, that was a
That,
that was a
yeah,
bitch.
absolutely. That is 100 100% true.
Yeah.
I've lived that example. And so now you could say like, well, technology has said you don't have the risk
Hmm.
because you could just make, decisions and swipe. And if they respond, like, and if they don't, you never were rejected.
Yeah.
But, for again, going back to my son, like, I want him to feel what that's like. I took a chance. I did this, and it didn't work. It did work because that's the foundation of being a human.
Hmm.
And you learn so much from those about you, about yourself.
Yep.
How did you respond and how did they respond? And yeah, I think that matters a lot. And then the flip side of that from a technology perspective is, we talked in the last podcast about things you didn't expect to be on the bingo card. So here's one for you, Chris. I'm going to make a Kim Kardashian reference.
Oh, oh, I'm going to be
Just
clueless, but go
just
ahead.
what we all needed. Last week, Kim Kardashian came out with a show, and she's a lawyer. I haven't seen the show, but I've seen a lot of coverage about this, and the cast on this thing is tremendous.
Hmm.
Like tremendous actresses are in this, award-winning actresses, and it's apparently so bad. And then I did see a clip with some of the dialogue, and it was crazy bad, almost like a parody. Anyway, it got 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, zero. And then
Ooh,
that got a lot of coverage. And she posted something on Instagram that I saw, which was like, "Thank you for those who have like, given me support." She's like, "The reality is like, you try, you fail.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes like failures fuel. Like I put it out there." And I was like, I almost felt bad about myself for engaging in the, oh my gosh, this is crap. She doesn't know what she's doing. And I was like, oh, she kind of took the joke and said, like, well, I mean, I'm trying something. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. And I was like, that's kind of impressive. Now, did she write that? Did somebody tell her to say it? It would show humility. I don't care.
I think, this has been, this conversation has made me think a lot because I started out by talking about my risk aversion. But man, would life be unjoyful if you didn't take any at bats, right? Like, I'm not even sure if it's even
Hmm.
possible, but like stepping to the plate, sticking your neck out, trying something, again, I'm not endorsing online betting by any stretch, but all the other risks that we face in our lives, the uncertainties, the decisions we have to make with incomplete information. Um, I think that's a huge source of joy, and that's what it is to live. So, I mean, that's kind of, I'm not sure if
Yeah.
I'm coming down right there, but that's certainly been elevated for me in this conversation.
Yeah. We make those choices every day, and I think that they're worth it. When
Yeah.
I left, I told you the story about how I got into journalism and that choice I made going into my last year of college. When I left journalism after 20 years and I was exploring all these options, I didn't know what I was doing. And then I started to investigate more and I realized, hey, there's lots of things out here. It's a whole nother world. I don't know that I'm going to be good at them. I don't know that I'm going to like them. But I remember I ended up with two choices that actually had made offers. And one was like, you don't have to worry that much about all these other things. Just come here and do this and write this, and it'll go to Tom. And when Tom's done, it'll go to Beth, and then Beth might send it back to Tom, and then it'll go to you, and then it'll go to me, and then you'll be done. And I'm like, and the other place was like, if you come here, you have untapped, compensation. We don't care where you work. We might not even remember your name, but you will have all this freedom. And if you don't succeed, you know what we're going to do? We're going to fire you.
Right.
And then I'm like, was that the offer? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, well, those are my two
Unorthodox.
choices. And I thought, the first place sounds like I'm writing white papers, and the other place sounds like I'm taking a bet on myself.
Yeah.
That's how I thought about it. I'm like, I'm
Mm.
doing that one,
Yeah.
and I've been on that path ever since. Now, that doesn't mean that was a just an upward trajectory for all those years. It had lots of ups and downs, but I'm like, I can't go back. I was running around passing or failing every day as a journalist. I can't go to the safe spot, but I didn't know that until I got to that
Mm-mm.
point. And
Yeah.
so I'm always going to be erring on the side of risk, less so as I get older with, with a family, but I think that it's just part of what makes me tick. And it sucks when you don't win the bets, whatever they are, but I still think it's worth it.
If you decide to buy or short a stock, right? You're faced with incomplete information, sometimes bad information. In the decision you just talked about, Ben,
Hmm.
a big input to that calculus was your self-belief, right? That, come on, I mean, that truly is living, right? Like I'm not sure if I'm going to succeed here, but I believe that it's worth me trying, and I think I can do it. And come on,
Yeah.
that to me is truly joyful. I'll tell you what, one other funny, stupid little funny story. When I was stationed at Groton in Connecticut, we used to go up to ski at Mount Snow up in Vermont a lot. And I had one buddy, Steve-O Suzannin, not a big boisterous guy, but a funny sort of little guy, good skier, but witty and just a little bit of a rabble rouser. And we'd be on the chairlift going up the mountain, and people would be skiing underneath us. And Steve-O was famous for just yelling all the time, take chances, take risks to the skiers below him, which is so belligerent and so bad. But it used to tickle me to death because those people were going, why is that guy telling me that I should I'm happy making like slow turns here. This guy wants me to take chances. And again, on the ski slopes, I am not a risk taker either. So easy for me to say, right?
Hey, I've never gone. I never learned. I've never gone, and it's my motorcycle. Yeah,
What?
yeah, and it's it's limited my choices now. But I'm like, I, when I was in my 20s, I had a really bad accident, broke my leg, had nothing to do with skiing, but I remember what that was like to overcome that. I've been fine for many, many years now, but I'm like, yeah, if that happened now, it could happen now. I could lose my balance. I could not be great at it. I could run into a tree. No matter the joy won't be enough for me to sustain that. It just won't be worth the risk.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But it's so situation specific because if you take that example and you put it into something else, I'm like, oh, I'm doing that. Because that's not about belief in myself. I'm not saying I can't, I probably could, but maybe not. I don't have great balance, but I'm like, I don't want to, that would put me out of work. How do I take care of my son? I'm like, it's not worth it anymore, you know? But a bunch of other folks would be like, you're missing out
Yeah.
Right.
on one of the
Yeah.
best sports ever.
Yeah.
What do you think the mountains are for? I'm like,
What
looking
do you
at
think the mountains are for?
hiking.
Hiking. Yeah. You do
Lots of other
that. You do
things.
that skiing in snow,
Yeah.
right? I'm out. It's got nothing to do with, being hard or breaking legs. It's like, oh, it's cold. I'm out. Any
So
last
before we
thought?
wrap,
Yes.
Sean, can I?
Yes.
I gotta tell you one quick Vegas story. So I don't think you guys have heard this. Certainly, our viewers have not, or our listeners and viewers have not heard this. So my first trip to Vegas was in the '90s, and it was part of a cross country trip I took with my girlfriend at the time, and we stayed at the Tropicana. And the selling point for me there, we had no money. We were just shoestring the whole trip. Was that they had a swim up blackjack table, and I'm like, God, what a creation! What an idea! So we're on the pool deck, and I said, I'm going to go play some cards, and she's like, okay, and I had, I don't know, maybe $50, probably 25, and so I go in the pool. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to play cards. She's like, it's just walk around. It's right there. I'm like, no. No, it's a swim up blackjack table. Like, I read the guidebook. What do you think we're doing? She's like, yeah, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So I swim over, and there's a built into the pool blackjack table with, I don't know, 6 stools, and one of them is open. So I swim over and I sit on the stool. Whole table stops in unison, and they're just looking at me, and I'm like, okay, and I take out my my $20 and I put it down. And the dealer goes, what are you doing? Now, right then I thought, okay, I took a risk, and I think this risk was not worth it because I go, I'm here to play. Don't you see? I've got 20 American dollars.
$25.
And he looks at me. He's like, son, we don't take wet money. And I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. And he's like, man, I'm just fucking with you. Of course we take wet money. It's a swim up blackjack table. Welcome in. And the whole table was in on the joke because they saw me swim over. They're like, this kid doesn't know what he's doing. So she looks over at some point. I'm like, yeah. And I won 3 hands. I think I won like 60. So let's say I go back with 80 and I take my $80 in chips and I don't walk around. I swim back and she's like, how was it? I'm like, awesome. I do this like turns out they do take wet money. But I just remember that 3 seconds was all horror. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm thinking like, well, how are all these people keeping their money dry? But yeah, it was worth the risk, John, to answer your question.
Absolutely. I'm not going to tell any more Vegas stories. Chris, any last comments for you?
No, tickled to death to end with that story because that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it's a great one. Well, thank you guys for indulging in this conversation. Appreciate your sharing. Folks, if you're listening, tell everybody about us. I mean, we're taking a risk here, just kind of doing this show and hoping we don't sound stupid, even though, are we winning that risk? I think we
Ben might be, but
Ben, yeah.
Well,
he's taking the risk doing it with us, so it's his own.
Yeah, he is.
I think we're worth the risk.
Yeah,
I think
me too. Thanks for coming, pouring it on with us, and tell your friends, reach out to us, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, gents.
Peace and love, boys.